Hello and welcome to the Buttcast episode 20. Today's special guest is Juan.
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing good. You?
I'm doing pretty good, having a good day. So, for as long as I have been around, you have been Mr. President.
Yep, since 2019, I think now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right about when I started.
Yep.
And let's go through the usual. What was your first exposure to Yu-Gi-Oh, do you think?
Let's see. Like, what do you mean exposure? Like the very first.
The first time you realized there was a card game, probably from the show.
Yeah. Okay. So. Yeah. I think it's like how every person started with Yu-Gi-Oh. Just waking up in the mornings watching 4Kids.
Yeah.
And that's how I got to Yu-Gi-Oh. I guess I didn't really know what Yu-Gi-Oh was exactly. Like, it had a card game or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the earliest memory I have of playing the card game was, I think, just going to the store. My mom or dad just bought me, like, packs. No real structure decks or anything like that. Just packs. I would have just a whole bunch of cards.
Mm-hmm.
And then, obviously, we didn't know how to play. You know, realistically, it was only me. My brother, in the early days, would play.
Mm-hmm.
But not like... We would know the rules. So the way we played was like... And sometimes we would get our dad into it, too. You know, this is early. We were like, compare the stars or like the attack values and stuff like that. We're like, oh, this is my guy's higher than yours, you know, stuff like that.
Just kind of playing war almost.
Kind of
number bigger, I win.
Yeah, like, oh, I got more stars and my attack is higher, something like that, you know.
Yeah.
I think it wasn't until, let's see, we're like, this is old, like old. Like when I have packs, I think like I think the first card I know I had was like, what's that? It's like a wolf, but it wasn't Silver Fang. It's like a level 4 effect monster.
Level 4 effect monster. That is a wolf.
Something like that. Yeah. Well, anyways, regardless of that, I didn't get into constructed play. Realistically, with I don't know if his name was Wolf or something.
No.
Like it's Fighter Wolf. I don't know. Whatever.
I'm just taking a peek. See
if
I can
no,
find
you're good.
If not, it's whatever.
Yeah. It might have been like a I don't know, it was a wolf or like a panther fighter or something like that. I don't know. It was that one. Yeah.
Pitch Black Werewolf.
There you go. That's one of my first cards.
Mm-hmm.
Fun memories of him.
Your opponent cannot activate trap cards during the battle phase.
Yeah. We didn't know what trap cards were. We didn't care what the effects. We're just like, wolf.
He looks pretty rad.
Yeah, we're like, wolf.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my first of constructed play wasn't until probably, I want to say, around the time of the first synchro structure deck.
Okay.
Yeah. That was like when I first got a structure deck and then or starter deck at times, and then just started adding cards. So I wouldn't know where to get cards, so I would just buy packs.
Okay.
And I guess my first instance of buying cards was like through Amazon, because I didn't know there was other sources to get stuff.
I had the same sort of path. The first place I bought cards from was Amazon.
It was Amazon, so I would just look it up. And I still remember one of my first orders was I went to Hero Neos. Of all things, it's like, I want Neos.
Did it go with the deck at all?
No, I just wanted Neos. I was like, I bought Neos. I guess it was I don't know if it was I bought a playset.
Uh-huh.
And even then, I didn't know what I was like. Oh yeah, I just buy 3 or something. I don't know. Yeah. So it was just buying cards.
Uh-huh.
Then it wasn't until, and it was it was my cousin. We found out my cousin also played, and then also had a neighborhood childhood friend that also would have decks, or he would play the game too. So I had a little bonding there.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until probably 2015, 2016 when I got into the competitive scene.
Okay.
I had known about previous stuff, obviously everybody talked about the Teledet era, or the Draco Sack, the Dragon Ruler, or stuff like that. I guess I can say I was fortunate enough to not play during that, competitively.
During those really high investment, very expensive formats.
Yeah, so I would have structure decks, and I just add cards that I liked. It's like, oh, cool.
So what was the so? By the fact that you knew about those things,
Mm-hmm.
you probably eventually got onto like the YouTube.
Yeah.
When do you think you started that?
We're looking into Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Yu-Gi-Tube, you
Yeah,
would
when
say.
you got onto YouTube.
Probably 2014, 2013, around there. So I guess like towards the end of Dragon Ruler.
Who were the sort of people though? Was it like, did you jump straight into the SEMO?
I don't know if it was
did you
like
get into some niche stuff?
I don't know if it was like SEMO per se, but it was like I'll just type in Yu-Gi-Oh! And like or like Yu-Gi-Oh! And then like decks or something right there. So I would just look at random things. I think the earliest ones I remember, like I think Galactic God, who doesn't do anything anymore.
Okay.
He retired a long time ago.
Uh-huh.
That's the only one I really know.
Saying the name of YouTubers that I've never heard of makes you feel much more, wise and ancient in a sense. Like, oh yeah, I was watching. I've already forgotten the guy's name you just said.
It was Galactic God or something.
Galactic God. And I'm like, wow, like that does sound like a YouTuber that existed in 2014. Yeah. Yep.
It was old, and I think briefly it was like Farfa, but when he was still going by Glasgow.
Glasgow YGO.
So, but like, I don't really remember any personas besides that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was the first? So you got your structure deck. You were putting stuff together, and you started going to tournaments.
So I didn't start going to tournaments until after competitive scenes. About, I want to say I didn't go to any actual tournaments like locals. Like when I would drive myself until 2019, I think 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't because I didn't like. So there was a period of time in high school from. I graduated in 2016 in high school. So I think around 20. Up until middle school, I was still kind of into Yu-Gi-Oh! And then like freshman year high school into Yu-Gi-Oh! And then like my cousin stopped playing. My brother didn't want to play too much. So I guess I took a break from Yu-Gi-Oh! One of my mini breaks from Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2014, 2015. Okay. And then when I was a senior in 2016, I started to like rebuy stuff. Like I would buy like whatever the new structure deck was, and then I would just buy a crap ton of packs.
Okay.
And just but like going to tournaments wasn't until 2019 around there. That's when I like got back in kind of like so. I do say I have my first competitive deck was like in 2016, but like I just built it. I built the deck.
What was it?
It was Frogs.
Frogs.
It was when I want to say when Totally Awesome was out by then.
Okay.
So I don't know if it was 2016 or 2017, around there, that era.
Yes, Totally Awesome Frogs.
Oh yeah, my favorite. And even I didn't like per se. I didn't want to build a deck. It was more like my brother liked the concept of frogs. Okay. Or he liked something about the deck, the control aspect, because we were still kind of like in and out of the game. So I built it for him. I literally built it, and the way we built it was, so we went to our Target and we bought a whole bunch of Invasion of Vengeance packs. Okay. So we pulled the frogs. We pulled the Total Awesomes. And we're talking at the time when they were like $70, $80.
Oh, okay.
So we were like, oh, cool, we have these. And we looked at the price. I was like, at the time we didn't know how to sell or anything. We were just like, oh, we have an expensive card. And then we bought more packs. We pulled another Awesome. So we had two of them. And I was like, oh, let's just build a deck. Yeah. And then I think by the time the Megatins were out, we pulled a third Toad. And I was like, all right, now we have to build a deck. So I built the deck for him. Yeah. And then he was like, I don't want to play anymore. I was like, oh, cool. I just stuck with the deck then. So then I guess I just stuck with the deck. And I've used it almost every format. I just evolved with it. Right. We even to the phase where Totally Awesome was at 1. Those were tough times. Those were definitely tough times. So, yeah.
I'm kind of putting together here that you never really had a friend group at school.
Oh, no.
It's kind of interesting.
No, because I was the jock.
You were the jock.
I was the jock, but also the smart one. I was like, I took gifted classes like AP, GT, stuff like that, all up until senior year. And I played football, so I had no time. Well, I guess you could say I had no time, but I had time. I just didn't have I just didn't care about Yu-Gi-Oh! At the time. Yeah. Right. And then there was no one there was no one you would see around just playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And then I guess one time I stumbled across after school, and then like the band guys were outside the little band hall.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw some people like they were trading or like looking at Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Oh, that's cool. And I think my first instance of trading with other people that weren't like my friend or our neighborhood or childhood friend and like my cousin and my brother.
Yeah.
Was I think I traded one of those promo from the special editions, like promo acid golems for like a Vylon core.
Okay.
And I still have the core to this day at my house in the binder.
Very cool, very cool.
Yeah, so that was my first instance of trading with someone else I didn't know.
I guess that tracks because I was a band kid.
Yeah.
And yeah, there were a few of us in the band, but I don't think I ever remembered any of the football people getting in on it.
No, we were like, and I think that's like also entering the anime kind of area when I was like watching anime stuff like that.
Football people, I don't know what it was like at your high school. At my high school, I always thought it was funny because it didn't really fit like the movie stereotypes very well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the star of the football team was also in all the AP classes. And anyone who was the best at anything was also in the smart people classes, right?
Yeah.
They might have been the smartest person in the smart person classes, but... So that kind of, jocks being stupid never really tracked or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't track completely. There were still some...
I mean, there's a bias.
There were still some people that weren't, of that quality. But there were still, like... There was, like... You would know who was, like, the smart ones. And, like... Because they would kind of hang out a little bit, even within their football group, wherever it is.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, like, our star quarterback, who... also was in some of my GT classes or AP classes. And then there's people who were, like, in football and band and advanced classes. Mm-hmm. So, all, like, the trifecta.
Yeah. I knew a couple of those people.
Yeah. So, like, I did football 4 years. I did advanced classes all 4 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, like, it's not like I had time. I just didn't want to. I had no motivation. I had, like, no one to play with. So I was like, whatever.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
That would definitely be disheartening.
Mm-hmm.
To not have anyone to play with.
Yeah.
And not really have any outlet. Did you, like, ever know anything about your local card shop at all? I mean, you said you went there to, like, your parents brought you there to buy some packs.
So, my instance of buying packs wasn't at card shops.
Okay.
It was going
like
to, like,
at
retail.
Walmart.
Like,
okay.
Walmart, Target, so like that,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. We did have a card shop in our area that one of my friends in our neighborhood would go. And he would tell us that his mom would take him to play. Mm-hmm. And he was like a big Fire Fist fan. So he had a Fire Fist deck and all this stuff. And he would always beat me down or, because, I was like, oh, Fire Fists are broken, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Yes, always whatever you're losing to is the most busted thing.
Yeah. So, like, even I would just take my bulk commentaries and trying to find cards that were good against it. Mm-hmm. So that's how, like, kind of my first instance of, like, trying to deck build, essentially. But as local scene, I only know small things about it. And even towards the end of when we drifted away from Yu-Gi-Oh, he told us that that local stopped doing tournaments for a bit.
Okay.
And that shop is still there in my hometown, but they don't really deal with Yu-Gi-Oh anymore. I think they're just primarily like just Magic, and even then they're just drifting away from card games in general and just doing just comics.
Just comics. Interesting.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That's kind of my card shop. I had the good fortune of having friends at my high school, and even back in my middle school days, that's where I really got actually playing. It's because I knew people at school. Mm-hmm. I was in the band category, so I was better equipped to find those sorts of people, and so I got to keep playing with those people for all the way through middle school. And how I first got into the game, I think I've told this story before, is a friend offered to take me to a comic book store. Mm-hmm. My parents get back when I was in middle school and like 6th grade or something. Yeah. And my parents gave me some money to buy comic books with. And I show up and there's a structure deck at the comic book store, and I bought that, the Atlantean structure deck.
Okay. I do actually remember buying that one too, but like
I think everyone did.
But it was past the time it was released. I think I like bought it on Amazon just to
I did like a retrospective, especially because podcast talking to all these people and stuff, to try to figure out like when I got the structure deck. It was years old.
Yeah, same. I was like also years old, but like I also got it.
everyone got that structure deck because I don't know if that's just how it was back then, that it just stayed on shelves for literal years or what, but they just were still circulating for years after their release.
Well, I don't think I ever saw that in stores, but I did see it in. I bought it on Amazon. Actually, now that I'm talking about structure decks, I think my first structure deck was the very first one that released was the Darkness Dragon, the Red Eyes Darkness Dragon.
Yeah.
So I bought the very first one. I also got I think I have multiple of the very first Dino one. So this was like, I guess you can kind of see the timeline. It was Dinos, the thing, and I think I still have my original Superconductor Tyranno. Like it's beat up as hell. But I think I lost the Darkness Dragon years, like 10 plus years. I don't know it's probably gone by now. I don't know.
Well, that's the old cards. When you look back on it, it kind of feels like sometimes you kind of feel, man, I should have held on to some of this a little more for the sentimental value sort of stuff. I think about that for me. Like, I still have a lot of the cards from back then. Unlike other people, for some reason, I figured out that sleeves were good. So most of my cards that are old are still in pretty good condition.
I was like, I didn't even know what a sleeve was until like probably this past the Synchro. I think the Junk Destroyer structure deck. That's when I actually started buying sleeves. So yeah.
That's a good question. Here's something. You play other card games, right? Of course. You play. What are all the ones you play? You play Digimon. You play.
So it was Yu-Gi-Oh. I entered into Pokemon a little bit. It was kind of like how most people do it. We were trying to collect it, but I also wanted to learn how to play it. And that only lasted like a couple months. So like, I don't like really buy Pokemon cards anymore, except for like unless it has Cynthia, then I buy Cynthia. I'll say I'm simp for Cynthia.
Okay.
Currently the game I'm playing the most of now is Digimon because I'm actually good at it.
Oh, okay.
I was decent at Digimon. I mean Yu-Gi-Oh too, but the one I really enjoy playing now is Digimon. I did a little bit of Dragon Ball, but more like I just bought a structure deck, and that's it. So like kind of learn for it, because I was like during that phase where I wanted to go away from Yu-Gi-Oh. But like the thing is with Yu-Gi-Oh is you go away and you come back, you go away and you come back.
Yeah, you just wait for the format that seems interesting.
So I did a little bit of Dragon Ball. I also Digimon. Currently, I'm learning how to play Battle Spirits, but more like I want to know how to play Battle Series. I know there's Digimon collaborations. There's also Gundam collaborations. I want to like get into it. But also, I want to become a judge for them. And like, kind of be like, it's like a petty reason. I want to become a judge so that I can like call out my friend who's like a really big Bandai like Battle Spirits fan. I was like kind of like, haha, you're wrong. I'm right. I'm a judge. You're not. So
you can just bully him.
Essentially,
it's a pretty good reason.
Yeah.
If ever there was a good reason to become a judge of some random little card games, it's just to bully your friends.
Yeah, just like, I know them, you don't. And I guess a little bit of Shadowverse is not released yet. We're just kind of dealt with it. I think that's the most card. I think it's all the card games I've done.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for all that, in my head I was thinking every card game uses sleeves at this point, and it's kind of weird to me in hindsight that now I'm breaking away from the format of us going through your history and just kind of talking. I kind of realize in hindsight it's kind of weird that all of the card games, none of them are like card quality shuffleable.
Yeah.
Like all of them get ruined instantly when you start shuffling them at all, which I just think in hindsight is very weird. It's like you're giving these trading cards to literal children.
Yeah.
And giving them a game where they have to shuffle them into a deck. And they are not, you can't do that without absolutely obliterating them.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's part of the strategy, that all the kids are going to ruin all their cards and have to keep buying more.
Probably. I think.
But the kids will keep using some really ratty cards.
Yeah, so like I just like the mentality early on where it's like you buy it, you kind of just want to play with them, and then like I guess they probably designed the cards to like last a certain time. Like, oh, it's beat up, whatever, just throw it away, or you can just buy more stuff and just like, yeah, I guess more like to kind of get people to buy more stuff, and then. But the thing is now they also like they'll sell sleeves, they'll promote sleeves. It's like okay, so now they want you to. I think car developers are now moving from mainly focusing on little kids to knowing their audience, which is like young adults.
Yeah.
So like now they're like, okay, people want to be more protective. They know what the market is. They're like, oh, we know that these cars are expensive or really hard to get. Let's promote protecting them so that so people will like I guess buy more.
It's kind of like a really big trend. I think looking back, I don't know if you've been on the YouTube train where you're getting a bunch of stuff about all of the weird fads that happened when you were a kid.
I think so.
My YouTube is popping off with, do you remember this TV show that had a game associated with it? Do you remember this TV show? And it's like, wow, yeah, I do remember. Yeah. They were like constantly these high-produced kids TV shows that had these huge toy line game associated with them. Yeah, they were everywhere.
There's times where I have seen those. I've been recommended those. I've been recommended those occasionally. It's like, oh yeah, I remember watching this. I know this. They didn't know they had a card game. They had a card game. Wow, almost everything had a card game, and you just never knew about it.
And from all that, I look at it now, and I'm like, that's not really a thing anymore. Mm-hmm. It's just the ones who kind of survived that war phase are the ones who are still going. If you Yu-Gi-Oh kind of lost, sort of its grip on kids specifically. Mm-hmm. They kind of moved away from that.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh's no longer directed toward kids. I think it's definitely going to more mature. Mm-hmm. It's going where Magic is, where it's like kids really don't play Magic.
Except Magic was always like that.
Yeah. Kids don't play Magic. Pokemon is definitely like the little kids thing.
Yes. Pokemon has the advantage of being the most well-known franchise of all time. Yeah. And they can just sell the cards as collector's items. Mm-hmm. It was always bizarre to me just how many people buy Pokemon cards who know absolutely nothing about anything. Mm-hmm. Like, they haven't played a Pokemon game in years. But it's Pokemon. Cool, I'm going to go buy some Pokemon cards. Yep. See if I recognize any of them. They're all like 6th gen. Oh, it's a pot. Wow, mm-hmm. These Pokemon are really cool nowadays.
Yeah, I've seen those where like the only instance of having Pokemon, which is like watching the first show or something on TV, and then like, oh, I know this guy, and then like they don't know anything else. Just like, oh, they'll still continue buying it just for that nostalgia factor.
Yep, it's interesting, but it kind of puts in perspective that our childhood. I think you're still in this range where all of this stuff was going on. Mm-hmm. We were way overspent on. Like, the market for it was way more massive when we were kids. Yeah. For all that stuff. So we were spoiled with these really, quote-unquote, high-quality toys and games that were being sold at not a loss, but a way lower profit margins because it was so competitive at the time. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like, nowadays, kids, that's not really what it is. Mm-hmm. It's all, nowadays, it's just the established guys trying to get as much money as possible. Mm-hmm. It's not as much of a battle for your attention. Mm.
It's true, because even to this day, I still every time I go to Walmart or Target, I still go to the toy section to look at what's new. And I'm like, occasionally I'll buy something like when Bakugan. I played when Bakugan also first came out. I had Bakugans. Yeah. I also played when the reboot happened. I have the new ones too, or at least I tried to. I had like the first wave. Yeah. Then they introduced a card game with that game too, and it flopped so hard because like a lot of retail stores didn't have product to sell, and then they were only doing retail. So I don't think any card shops actually had Bakugan packs or boxes. They didn't sell them in traditional booster boxes. They had them in boxes where like it would still be the same value as a booster box, but or like the same amount of packs. But it was just singles, like single packs. So you would buy just a pack or something. And they have and they tried doing it. They failed. Mm-hmm. And then you also look at Transformers. They also had a card game. And that only lasted a couple of years, but the Transformer toys are they're still famous. They're still big out there. And then like when I go to the Transformer section, I was looking at them and I was like, I started remember buying like a deluxe class for like $10 to $15. Now deluxe class will run you $25, and I was like, when did they get so expensive? And like the little miniature ones will cost like $7 to $10, or like $7 to like around that range. Now they're like $12. I was like, why is this such a difference? Why is there such a disparity in pricing? So I was like, I don't know.
I'm sure part of it's just inflation, but I do think the toy market has changed a lot since we were kids.
Yeah, but it's not even like the quality doesn't even warrant the price. Yeah, like the quality of the Transformers have just declined so hard that you're paying $25 for something that's so flimsily made.
Well, it feels like their big spend was getting people like us and perhaps the generation before us to have nostalgia about it. So now we'll buy the crappy toys for our kids.
I guess.
I think that's probably part of it.
I can definitely see it.
They're just riding on the back of nostalgia.
But even then, like, if you look at the toy reviewers, they're just buying it for themselves.
Yeah.
They'll buy it for themselves, and then, like, they'll complain about it, and it's like, yeah, but you're still buying it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I guess it drives people away, but you only drive such a small fraction that it doesn't really matter what your influence is.
As long as you're still making money. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of Transformers specifically, I remember so many bizarre shows that were just on that were Transformer stuff. Like the one where they were dinosaurs.
Yeah, there were dinosaurs and also like vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still have nostalgia about that. I think it's called.
There were like 3 different Transformers cartoons that I vaguely remember during different time periods.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think Sonic the Hedgehog, there were like 4 different versions that I remember seeing.
I remember a couple. I grew up with Sonic X, but I also knew about like the other ones like Sonic Underground.
Yeah.
Was that one Sonic X? Well, there's only those 2. Those the only 2 shows I knew about.
Remember.
But there's like the original one. And
there was the one that was like traditionally animated, and then there was Sonic X. There was the one that was like almost 3D model looking. I can't remember what that one was called. That one was short lived. There was one that was like 3D model looking. There was Sonic X, which I remember that one very well. And there was Sonic Underground, which was more old school animation kind of look.
Yeah.
And then there was one, that, if I remember correctly, comments correct me, all none of you who comment. There was one that was like sort of 3D model looking, if I remember correctly, that did not last very long. And I think there was one more. Maybe that was just movies though.
There was some movies. I think I know the 3D one you're referring to is. It's like kind of recently. It was like Sonic Boom.
Oh, Sonic Boom, yeah, that's a different one, isn't it?
But that one, it's like they live on an island, and at first it's like it's childish, but the show's actually like really funny.
There a lot of like memes come out of that show.
Yeah, like it's genuinely a funny show. Like it's a good show.
How can the salad be hot and the soup is cold?
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
Or the meme approved, but like it doesn't even say meme. It just says like something approved, and it just like they sliced it so it says meme approved.
Yep.
It's like, but it's still hilarious.
It's a treasure trove.
Yeah, that one is definitely that one. And I think I've noticed with a lot of shows too, where like the show is targeted to kids, but if an adult or someone others watching it, they'll pick up on those small jokes in there, and they're like, "Oh wait, that's actually kind of funny." And you know.
I feel like when we were kids, it was dirty jokes they'd hide in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you rewatch SpongeBob or something, it's like absolutely littered with dirty jokes you're not supposed to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of our shows, but I feel like now the stuff they hide for adults is like memes.
Oh yeah, I guess
they
so.
like hide stuff in there for people to notice. That's not necessarily dirty jokes, but like stuff they know is like internet culture.
Yeah,
adults are going to understand it and think it's funny, and the kid's not going to. Like having first of all, just making fun of school food for an age range that's probably too young to have that experience yet.
Yeah,
is just kind of a haha, older people. You remember when you were in school?
Yeah,
and you were like, this food is preposterously bad.
Yeah,
how did they even manage to make it this bad? But then you just have stuff like the approved thing, where it's like clearly they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and it's funny, like even in remember like the soccer episode or the soccer meme where it's like Amy is like, oh, one small step for women or one giant step for something like that, right? And then like Knuckles, the typical airhead, the dumb one, is all smart and it sounds like he's a feminist and all that stuff. Like, and you're just like, where did this come from? It's kind of funny, It's funny.
Yep, I think comedy has changed for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Comedy is different. I know. I don't know if you remember watching the Cat in the Hat movie.
Yeah, I remember.
That one is. I don't know. It's like it's one of those where like, I don't know if it aged well, but the jokes have. I feel like the jokes have aged well.
Yeah, that is a smorgasbord of a movie.
Oh, it's one of the best movies ever. I don't care what you say. It's
one of your favorite movies.
It's literally like one of those where like even as a kid I enjoyed it, and even now I still enjoy it because it's just the jokes. Now, so when you're a kid, you enjoy it for a different reason.
Okay.
And now that you're adult, you enjoy it for the reason I think it was meant to be enjoyed, which is like the jokes that hide in there.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, now they're it's like one of those movies where it kind of grows with its audience in a way. Yeah.
Speaking of, do you feel like you are a very nostalgic person? I think that's a common trait with people who are into card games and stuff, because most of us got into them when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think of yourself as being a nostalgic person, or do you think of yourself as being more objective about what's fun and what's not? The fact that you switch card games pretty often, would it imply that you're more like searching for the thing that's genuinely fun, rather than the fact that you keep coming back?
I think card game wise, I'm not 100% nostalgic, but I think I do lean. I guess I can kind of lean that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think with Yu-Gi-Oh that it's gotten to the point where I'm not gonna say it's not fun, because it can be fun.
Yeah,
it can be fun. It's just you have to think about it objectively, which is like, do you really see yourself enjoying this game much longer,
mm-hmm.
right? Or do you like what they're producing?
Yeah.
For me, it's more like I've been with Yu-Gi-Oh for so many years that I want something different. I wanted to try something different.
Mm-hmm. So
that's why I tried Dragon Ball first. Didn't like it as much.
Yeah.
I never tried Magic, and then ice per se, like not young and like not recently. I think I did one match of Magic. That's the first I have of Magic.
Uh-huh.
And even then, I still don't know the jokes. I know the rules because I had someone coach me the entire time.
Yeah.
But with like Yu-Gi-Oh, it's gotten to the point where like it's so complex, and I'm not saying it's too complex for me. I grew up. I know a lot of stuff. So like, it's not complex in the way for me. It's more like, can I enjoy with someone else? And yeah. I know like I can't get my brother. I can't never get my brother back into it, or my cousin, or like my other friend. He's kind of moved away. But like, you can't get someone new into Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah,
it's just impossible.
It's very difficult.
Yeah, it's impossible with Yu-Gi-Oh. Actually, one of the card games I played also was Vanguard. I blinked on Vanguard because it's so kind of like, I just don't like it that much. Yeah, it's honestly forgettable. Like
it feels like it's the black sheep of trading card games.
The thing is,
loves making fun of them.
Yeah, like most people have almost never heard of Vanguard, but you look at the charts of like top selling games, Vanguard is like number 5 or 6. And you're like, I didn't know it was a thing, right? Or they're on their 3rd reboot and they've only been out for 10 years. So it's like, okay, at some point you're just like, you have to admit the game is not good. You're just in there because you've been there for so long.
Uh-huh.
And that's how I am with Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, I know the game of Yu-Gi-Oh is no longer good, or at least it's getting to a point where it's not gonna go back to being good. It's just strictly kind of like it's competitive or tailored to other people rather than just everybody. Because at least in Pokemon, I think in Pokemon you can tailor it to both. You can tailor it to casuals and competitive people. In Yu-Gi-Oh, it's more like people will look at it and like, oh, cool, this new archetype is good. It's busted. It's tier 1. What are the rest of the cards? Pack filler? Garbage. Right?
Yeah, that's definitely... It's hard for... How should I put this? I'll start by stating my position. I'm not as much nostalgia, but I'm definitely not objective either, because I'm a bit obsessive.
Okay.
So, I got into Yu-Gi-Oh! And every time I'm presented the opportunity to learn some other card game, I immediately reject it. Mm-hmm. I'm like, it could be. In fact, I'm sure it's very fun. Mm-hmm. And even if it was like objectively more fun than Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm so obsessive. I've been so deep in this hole. Mm-hmm. I can't start digging somewhere else.
No, I get that, because that's how I was too a little bit. I was like, I've put so much money into Yu-Gi-Oh that I don't want to go anywhere else.
Oh, mine's not money.
For me, it's monetary wise, because I've dumped so much money into Yu-Gi-Oh, and then I've seen some returns, but like not like a lot. I mean, we're talking like I think I've spent thousands of dollars in the game, and I've only seen a couple hundred back. But it's more like whatever at the time. Now I'm kind of in Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm in that area where it's like I'm not so much looking at the game as to play it, more as to make money out of it.
Okay.
So I'll buy some cards that I think will go up in value, or I see someone say like some YouTuber or market watch people saying, oh, this card is going to be good, or it might go up in value, if you buy it now, or you buy it kind of like early-ish. Mm-hmm. Especially with the smaller channels that like don't only have maybe a couple thousand viewers or subscribers. You're like, okay, they might say some stuff that are like under everybody's
Under the radar,
nose.
yeah.
Under like the radar, then you can make some money off of it. Or you just cards you genuinely think might go up. Like recently, I bought an Italian ultimate rare dark metal flare dragon or red eyes metal flare dragon, whatever his name is.
Yeah,
right?
because Cashtira probably.
Yeah, so I bought it because I bought the Cashier deck. I bought the core for like 170.
Mm-hmm.
Then I sold it. I think I sold just the Fenrir's alone for like 160.
Yeah.
So I made my money back. And I sold the unicorns to Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
And I sold the rest of the cores. Like, you just make money off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I bought the ultimate rare red eyes for, it was additionally for Cashier, like you said. And I think I bought it for like 27. And now it's like 60 something, like 50 something. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I make money on that.
Okay.
Sometimes you don't expect to make the money, but you make, you know, you want to make it.
So you're kind of taking a new approach to the game.
Yeah, so I'll
more
definitely,
playing the
yeah.
financial game.
And I think I do that with every card game I'm in now. So with Digimon, I genuinely enjoy the game as it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoy the gameplay, the mechanics, but there's also money to be made. So I'll buy cards now that I think are cheap, and then like I'll think they might go up in price.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's that. Or you know, or maybe have an obsession with a card and I'll buy it super cheap and just have a whole bunch of collection with it.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Like a certain someone who bought a lot of cucumber horses.
Yes, come horse.
Uh-huh.
Stupid. But I'm in the same boat. In Digimon, I bought like 128 Wormmons. It's a little caterpillar. It's not even good. I just wanted it because it was a joke in Discord. I mean, so I was like, in the Digimon Discord, I'm like, I'm gonna buy Wormmons or whatever it is. So I did it as a joke and I bought a whole bunch of them. Now it's like, I'm known as the worm guy.
Really?
So it's like, okay.
I mean, they were cheap though, right?
Yeah, I bought them at like 5 to 15 cents a piece.
That's the thing about like commons is like, it's really funny when you just have a ton of them, but it costs you like almost nothing.
It doesn't. I bought like 128 for like $10.
Yeah.
Like, and then you're like, someone's like, oh, but you bought $10 worth of commons. Yeah.
It's a pretty economic joke.
Yeah, it's like it's a funny joke. I want to do it, and I started a trend with other people.
Mm-hmm.
I had a buddy who bought the super rare of a Digimon card. It was like I think also cheap. It was like $4 or like $2 to $4 a piece.
Mm-hmm.
And he has way more than me. I think he has like 300 of them. So you're like, you spent way more money than me. At least I started something. I started with a trend. I started kind of doing something, and then someone else was buying secret rares at like they were like probably $10-$12 a piece. I was like, that's way more money than me.
Yeah.
But like, you know, because they have money. I don't have that much. I don't have their type of money to spend on like that. So.
Yeah, but $10 for a joke is not that bad.
Yeah, exactly. It's not,
For me, it's never been, I don't know, maybe the total amount of money I've invested in Yu-Gi-Oh! Invested, hard quotes there, is like between $1,000 and $2,000 total.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount I've gotten back from it is probably a couple $100.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of similar with that, so.
But I've never really thought about it like I was trying to make money. I'm just trying to play the game as cheaply as I can.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, to me, that's part of the game.
Yeah, I guess.
Is playing with when am I going to buy this to get it as low as possible? Is it really worth it to buy this card instead of this other card?
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of playtesting on my phone and stuff to try to see. I always try to make sure my build is 100% perfect before I ever buy the card, stuff like that.
Yeah.
If I know a card is going to be good forever, I'm just going to go ahead and buy it when it's cheapest.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know, like, the Bestials, I bought those suckers right when the price dropped.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're worth way more.
Yeah, so, like, my Flare Dragon is worth... Because mine's light played.
Uh-huh.
But I can sell it to a sucker for, like, near mint. Because it looks near mint, right?
Uh-huh.
But if I was to sell it as light played, it'd be 56. I bought it for 20-something, you know?
Okay.
Like, it's just... Yeah. But, yeah.
I think my best investment was buying Access Code Talker during the pandemic.
Mm.
And everyone knew it was going to happen. But I just went ahead and I was just one of the people who's like, you know what, why not?
Yeah.
I'll buy an Access Code Talker, even though there's not any tournaments.
Yeah, I think I've gone through 3 access codes now.
3 Access Codes?
Yeah, and like, some people were like, that's a lot of money, but like, I bought the original one at, I went to a store, I traded in cards for trade value, and I got it for like, I think at the time it was like 80 or something, or like, no, I think at the time it was like 60 something.
Okay.
I think I sold it for like, or I think I traded or sold it for like 80, so I made money there.
Yeah.
Then I bought another secret rare for 100. At the time it was like 100 something. I bought it for 100 off of a friend. Then literally the next day I went back and I sold it to our mutual friend Matthew. I sold it to him for like 136 the next day.
Yeah.
So I made money there. And then I bought the gold rare for $50. I used it for like maybe a day.
Yeah.
And I used it as tournament pricing. And I made my money back on it too. Cause I think overall entries was like $80.
Yeah.
So I plussed on that too.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, yeah, I'll buy expensive staples, maybe not use them, and then I'll just sell them or flip them somewhere else.
Okay. So you're a very different sort of person than most of the people I've had on. Most of the people I've had on have been players more so than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you're more tangentially related, like doing the financial stuff and.
I mean, I was mainly a player for the longest, and then I was like, I saw that I can make money off of it, or at least I can make my returns back on those cards or things. So I was like, yeah, okay. And before I was like, I'll buy a little cheaper, and then now I'm doing like what the standard practices is like. You sell at like, you'll sell it around like 80% of the card's value, because that's not what. I guess it's like kind of like a set, not a set rule, but more like everybody knows that's how you do it when you're dealing with like buying or selling cards. And then now I'm more like, I'm trying to like, I don't know, I'm gonna say I'm like moving towards the storefront mentality, which is like, if you know someone, you're like, okay, I'll probably buy this card off of you like 65-70%. Mm-hmm. So then I can now flip it for 80-85, right? Okay. So it's like, you know. I guess, yeah, I do see myself now going towards that. Instead of being a player first, I'm now a player first, but slowly, like, underneath it is more like, I'm trying to see if I can make my money back on this.
Mm-hmm. You're just playing a different game. So I like to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! It pretends it's one game, but it's actually a lot. Mm-hmm. A lot of different games. Mm-hmm. There's the hyper-competitive people who are trying to get to Worlds, who are trying to win regionals and stuff, and who might think of intimidation and slow play and those sort of soft cheating stuff to be part of the game, and more and less dubious things like just being really good at reading your opponent and stuff, and taking it very seriously, and maybe being a bit, what is the word I'm looking for? Aggressive with people. Right? That sort of person. That they're playing a certain sort of game. This hyper-competitive version. And then there's a lot of the people that I'm friends with, and myself probably included, who is more like, this is a tool for having fun with people. This game is a tool for me to interact with people and have a chance to talk to my friends. Right? And then there's the really casual people who are like, oh, okay, sure, I will just do the thing. They're like, they have zero, and they aren't using the game in any sort of active way. It's just kind of a thing they have and do, versus making it more part of their routine in life, like people like me do more. And then you have people like you who are like, sure, I'll play the game at whatever level it is you like playing, but also this financial thing is also a very important part of it to me. And it helps keep you in. But, you know, I'm glad that that's part of it because it keeps people like you coming back to the game.
I don't, like, fully leave the game. Like, I don't just ditch everything. I'll buy the newest structure deck.
Yeah.
I don't say I'll buy the newest set. Unless it's a card I like, I'll just buy the single.
Yeah.
Right, but, like, yeah. I just, like, like I said, I was that mentality where just, like, competitive. I was a player first. And, like, I would have competitive decks, and I would play against, I don't say anything about the people down here that, you know, are mutuals or mutual friends down here at school. But, like, there's only so much practice you can get with them.
Yeah.
So, like, Eddie is probably the best one that, if you want to practice somebody, I guess you do with Eddie, Luke, or, you know, other person.
Other person.
You know, I don't know if he wants his name to be said or not. So...
But Eddie and Luke, they're more competitive, but they're still pretty chill. Yeah. But then last person who, for now, we will leave unnamed, is a lot more of the get a little bit of grime in there sort of player. I assume we're talking about the same person.
Is it the Cum Horse guy?
No. No.
I'm talking about a Cucumber Horse.
Cum Horse guy, is he even competitive?
He's kind of. You know, Pendulum Best Deck. Even
that's not the same.
Pendulum Best Deck. Or Florida Reese. That's still technically, you know.
I guess he is a bit more.
He's a bit, but he's like
He's definitely a step down from
Luke, like,
I'd say.
He's like trailing that line where it's like casual and competitive, but he's like in the middle.
Yes, he actually will go to tournaments and he will try his best during those tournaments.
Like he'll fly out to those big things, like I think the YCs in California. Even if they didn't get to play or play in the main event, they said they side events. Like he still goes with them to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the other person I think we're talking about is the one who went to Nats, right?
Yes, I believe so.
So we're talking about that. Yeah,
we get a bit of a range of people around here, which I think is good.
Yeah,
it means you can kind of get to experience the different levels.
Mm-hmm.
Like we had that one guy. He's not here anymore, but the guy who proxied everything, the Blackwing player.
Oh yes.
That was the
goat.
hyper casual, which had its own level of fun to it.
Yeah.
Where it's like my extra deck is 30 cards, but I'm playing a really casual deck, so it does not matter.
Even then, like that was just like because we let him, be himself there. But when we host tournaments and he doesn't show up too much, but like we did an online tournament, like a non-meta tournament a while ago, and even I was present, I still partook in the tournament, and him and me made it to the finals. And we're talking, this is like wacky stuff, right? Like everybody had very creative decks. Everyone had very creative decks. He just took Blackwings. It was still funny. Uh-huh. And then like I took 60 card True Draco, True King, something else. I remember. I combined it with a third archetype. Yeah. Like there's no reason it should have worked, but it worked.
Yeah.
So
it's something really goofy.
Yeah, we took a goofy thing and it was funny. Like even then he when he tries to be like, when he actually wants to build a deck, he'll actually build a deck. Like it's good. But yeah. If we have every person from super casual to super competitive. It's everybody here.
Mm-hmm. But I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's the end of that little conversation, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. What else do I want to talk to you about? Let's go through some of the decks.
Okay.
So the first one was Frog.
Yeah, so
that you played.
My first competitive was Frog, but I think my first deck was still just Synchro.
Yeah. It was, whatever the heck crap you could put together.
And I was still trying to upgrade it with stuff that would have synergy with the deck. So I would still make a semi-competent Synchro deck for the time, right? So Synchro, Frogs. I think that's when I think after that I started moving. Well, actually, before Frogs, I think my first deck was still Invoked.
Invoked?
I don't know if it was no, I think it was my I think it was after Frogs.
Yeah.
Or maybe during the same time as Frogs. I don't know. It was in that time period where
I feel like that would be after.
The thing is, I wasn't Frogs in right away as the very first time of Frogs. We're talking when the Paleozoics were kind of out. Uh-huh. And by that time, Invoke was already out, right?
Okay.
I think when I first really started, it was actually competitive-wise 2017. Okay. We'll say 2017 because I think 2016 was Battle of Legends or something, and I had I think I had an Odd Eyes deck. Yeah, I had an Odd Eyes deck before that, so I was really into Odd Eyes. I love the Odd Eyes and the Dimension Dragons here like that.
Okay.
So, yeah, we're talking about. I played a wide variety of decks. Mm-hmm. Frogs, Invoked, any variation of Invoked really. Mech Knight Invoked, Mech Knights per se. Because also I've done Mech Knights pure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't even name all the decks I played. Mm-hmm. But the key ones that I'm kind of I play or I'm known for it was Invoked, Plunder. I love Plunders.
Okay.
I just enjoy the playstyle. So it's Invoked.
You got a little bit of personality when you play Plunder.
No, that game, that deck is fun.
No, what do you think of the new support?
I mean, just the one card.
Dude, it's the Earth ship.
Yeah, the Earth ship is real.
Dude, it's a car.
It's literally brand. They just put tank tracks underneath it, and they go there.
I think there's some wagon wheels.
Yeah, or something. I don't know what it was tank tracks or something.
They threw some wagon wheels on that guy, and they're like, "Bam, Earth ship."
Yeah, Earth ship. And the thing is, even after years of us wanting more ships, we finally got the Earth ship. Now we just need the Wind ship.
Well, the Earth ship matters a lot.
Yeah, it makes
it's a really big improvement, even though it's just one card.
Yeah. So it's interesting. One card can change the deck. Yeah, Plunders, Invoked, Frogs. Recently was Scareclaws.
Scareclaw.
It's actually a really fun deck. People were kind of sleep on it.
The only thing I've ever seen as Scarecrow, so maybe you can explain a little bit, was in like MBT's progression playoff, where they just had some Scarecrow cards in their draft format. And that's literally the only exposure I have.
I don't know. I've
literally just there's a Link 3 that brings back, and the Scarecrows are like little dogs and stuff.
Yeah, little beasts. It's fun. Yeah. Yeah, Scarecrow Pure. Not many people played it. It was more like a rogue deck. We're talking like tier 2 maybe. And then it got new support. It's been getting support, and it's like slowly going up. I don't think it'll ever be a tier 1 deck by itself.
Do you actually play Vista Starfrost?
Yeah.
Or is it? Okay.
No, you play Vista.
I'm just checking. There are a lot of decks that are Vista Starfrost that do not play Vista Starfrost.
No, so like it at first. I guess at first you didn't really want to play it because it's a 5 and you're like, or a 6, and you just want to kind of like you don't want to like drop it. Even though there's a way to cheat it out. It was kind of weird to play in the deck because you want to like focus on the main strategy of special summoning itself to like special summon the Scarecrows to adjacent zones and stuff. Or in the same column, and like, okay, cool. It has like a cool mechanic, which is like adjacent zones. Like only some decks do that. But then like people saw, oh wait, Vista Starfrost plus a right card equals Baron. So then they started putting that into their tier element decks. So it's like, even though I don't like it, because even like I was in a Scarecrow Discord, and then we would say, oh look, Scarecrow tier element topped. Look at it. It's only like 4 Scarecrows. Like, this is not a Scarecrow deck. So it's kind of peeves me. I think it's with anything, any deck that like says something. If the something, the second something is only like 4 cards.
Yes.
I was like, why do you call it that?
I talked to names. Why can't Sean? I talked to Sean, and he complained at length about when DPE was around, and every deck was blah, 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 hero.
Oh, yeah.
It was, Drytron hero, Goki hero, and he's thinking, oh my gosh, what have these crazy brews people must have come up with. And every time it's just Verte DPE, he's like, that's not a hero deck.
Yeah, it's not a
and
hero.
I've been very inclined to agree with him. It is very upsetting when you think that there's something cool about it, and then you look at it and you're like, that's not what that is at all.
Yeah. Like even... I guess it goes all the way back down to like Frog Monarch, right?
Okay.
I don't remember too much about that. I just heard about it because frogs. But like, I guess as one of the instances where they only played Treeborn Frog, I think.
Basically.
It was called Frog Monarch.
Yes.
You only played 3 frogs and that's it. But like, because that frog was so important to the deck, I can see why his name Frog Monarch.
Frog Monarch, yeah. Well, I think it was because it was such a big change for that strategy, that before you relied on stuff like flip monsters and stuff, and now the fact that you're relying on Treeborn Frog instead, and also it really changed the way that the deck functions because you can't play as much back row. All your back row you can't play as much battle traps and stuff. You have to have stuff you can get rid of to summon the Treeborn Frog afterwards. So it was warping enough to where it felt the need to be mentioned in the name.
Yeah,
but also I don't think frogs was as much of a strategy at that time. Per se, I think at that time Frog was like
they didn't have an identity. Yeah, they didn't have an identity. They had their own little thing. Like you have the Death Frog stuff, and they would play nice with the other Frog support, but like it wasn't until like they actually had a dedicated Frog stuff. Which it is what it is. So, Goblins isn't a dedicated deck, but there's so much support for the Goblins. You can just make a Goblin deck.
Did you?
Yeah, I tried doing that one time.
What does the Goblin deck do?
It's just a whole bunch of level 4s.
It's
legit just
down.
Almost all the goblins that we've seen have been level 4s.
Yeah.
So you can go into a whole bunch of you can do a whole bunch of even though they don't have searchable cards as a goblin or search for goblins, they just have something like Goblinberg summon a 4.
Yeah.
Or they have Goblin attack force.
Yeah.
Right. There's a whole bunch of goblins that even if you don't have like the traditional support system for it, it's still a deck you can make.
I just think it's funny that a lot of the time when they're like, oh, what is this card going to be? Oh, let's just make it like some people doing something. They're like, better. Goblins. Just make them goblins.
Yeah.
What is this card? Oh, we're trading a fish? Goblins. The goblins are trading fish. Oh, what is this card? A cart broke down? They're goblins.
Yep.
It's a cart full of goblins. I always thought that was funny. That Yu-Gi-Oh! Is just like, their idea of any normal situation is just to replace the people with goblins, and now it's a Yu-Gi-Oh card suddenly.
Mm-hmm.
Take a normal situation, replace the people with goblins, bam. Now it's a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
Yeah, or they'll add Sangan, even though the card has nothing to do with Sangan. They just put it in Sangan in the artwork.
Which one are you talking about?
Sangan has isn't so many
Sangan has a little storyline.
Yeah, it's like Sangan has a storyline, and almost none of the cards are related to each other.
Yeah, they almost don't have anything to do with each other except that their artwork and name kind of tell a story.
Yeah, it's just a story. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's one thing I do like about Yu-Gi-Oh is their storytelling.
Yes, I agree for sure.
You look at the cards, realistically on the artworks of those lores or their archetypes. You're not looking at trying to read into it what they're. You're just looking at the artwork and okay, you can kind of just tell you can tell how the story progresses.
One thing I've heard, because I've thought about making a card game stuff. I did some research, listening to some people talk about card games, because I think the art of making a card game is very interesting, right? And they talk about how you want to have this very consistent theming and stuff like that, consistent art style. But what I really, really love about Yu-Gi-Oh is that isn't the case. Anything could be a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
Yeah.
And because of that, they can do some wild stuff. And they can make some of Sue ships.
Yeah.
I adore Sue ships. Every time they print a new, and I don't adore them like I'd actually want to play them. But I adore just how much fun it seems like the people are having who are making them. Every time they release a new support card, I'm like, oh, this is how it relates to this. In case you don't know, the basic idea of the Sue ships is that they are genuinely boats, giant boats, warships and stuff that are made out of sushi. So you've got the one that's just rice, and then you've got the one that's roe, and then you've got the one that's all the different ingredients. Yeah. And then you put them together, because it's an Aziz archetype, to make the warships, which are dishes, which are actual sushi platters. And you get advantages if you use the right ingredients to make them, right? And it's you do feel like you're making it. But they take it a step further, where it's oh, this card, when a sushi ship is destroyed, you summon the ingredients from your hand and make a new one, and you charge your opponent this many life points. Yeah. So it's you're working at a restaurant, and they finish it off. You're okay, pay for it. I'll make you a new one. Yeah. Stuff like that. They had one that's called Chef's Choice, where the image is a restaurant, and there's just a little picture of one of the sous ship dishes. And what it says is that, you reveal one from your extra deck to your opponent. Yeah. And then they decide what ingredient to give to you. And some people are mad because it's what? They don't even have to pick the card you revealed? Well, that's the whole point. It's the chef's choice. Yeah. It's not the chef tells you what to order. You ask, what does the chef recommend? Right? And that's exactly what the card does. I see. It's just a recommendation to your opponent. Hey, this is the dish you should probably make, right? And I think that's so funny. Because even though it's not necessarily good from a gameplay perspective, they're using gameplay to mimic you being a sushi chef, which I just think is so goofy.
Yeah, I think stuff like that is definitely interesting and kind of cool for them to do. They are doing anyways. Yeah, like I said, Yu-Gi-Oh is probably top tier in lore and storytelling. I think, anyways, they definitely know how to. They know how to portray their cards at least, or how to advertise it, or I guess I don't know, advertise or market their cards. So you don't like. I think that's what they're trying to go into more Pokemon in a way, where it's their collectability is there. You're oh, you might not like the deck, but you like the artwork. Just buy it. You can,
I think they definitely have gone a long way from the everything's just weird demons that they used to do. Whereas now you've got all of these very distinct themes, and some of them, like the Melfies, are just so cute. And they've just taken things a whole new direction. Although everything is kind of converging on this anime sort of art style.
Well, Yu-Gi-Oh! I think Yu-Gi-Oh! The first, I guess what it was called Wizards and Dragons, or Wizards and Dragons.
Something.
Yeah, like literally, because
The very beginning was weird.
yeah, like Yu-Gi-Oh, like in the Yu-Gi-Oh Zero manga, Yu-Gi-Oh wasn't exactly the card game that we know of. It was a series of games they played, and so the first one they played, and the one that became the most popular, was Wizards and Dragons, which is now what we know as the modern Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
They also had the dungeon one, the dungeon monsters, but that one that kind of flopped.
Dungeon dice monsters.
Yeah, that one flopped, but. What people were drawn to was the card game aspect of, and they only showed it like a couple of times.
Yeah.
But it was that popular that it's just like, let's just now fully go into that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was Zero, Zero is a wild thing to itself. They played, like, they had lanes for the Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Which are basically modern field spell idea, but a bunch of other stuff. It was weird.
Yeah.
But that's one of the other things about Yu-Gi-Oh's design that is different than a lot of other card games. That Yu-Gi-Oh, from my perspective, was designed to be cool, to feel cool, in a sense, if that makes any sense. It was designed to feel cool. When you are comboing off with it was designed for combos to exist. It was designed when you're comboing off, you feel like you're doing something cool. You feel like you're doing something broken that you shouldn't be allowed to do, even though that's what you were intended from the very beginning. It's one thing to see some people when they do Pokemon, or a lot of the people I've talked to who play other card games, they all agree. Yu-Gi-Oh is the one that you feel like you're doing something broken. You feel like you're doing something insane every time, no matter what you're doing. Yeah. And that's so different from other card games, where it feels a lot more balanced. It feels a lot more like a back and forth, whereas Yu-Gi-Oh feels just so much more explosive. But it was, in a sense, it was always supposed to be like that. There have always been these crazy haymakers in Yu-Gi-Oh's history.
Well, I think early, I won't say early Yu-Gi-Oh, but like kind of like during the set and pass time, like GOAT format around there, like it was definitely back and forth. It was like, set a monster, set a spell, pass. And now it's like, let me make my impenetrable wall of a board.
Things have definitely changed, for sure, but that core idea, I think, is the same. Because back then you had these just objectively, absolutely insane cards for the time. Pot of Greed, Graceful Charity, Delinquent Duo. You had these power cards that were just leagues more powerful than anything else. And the whole point of everyone's deck at the time is how you can get the most value out of these insanely busted cards. Right? Exactly. It was slower, it took you longer to find those cards, but when you got your Graceful Charity, it felt like you were doing something absolutely insane and busted. Every time. Every time you got to that Graceful Charity, you got to that Pot of Greed, it felt like you were doing something insane. But the counterbalance is that sooner or later your opponent's going to be able to do the same thing. But it's not like when your opponent resolves Graceful Charity, and then you do it on your next turn, it doesn't feel any less like you're doing something insane, because your opponent also got to do it. It still feels so crazy. But nowadays, it's kind of shifted more towards being more consistent. Whatever your deck strategy is, you're always going to be doing. The how we're getting that feeling has changed. Yeah. But the same, in my view, the same kind of outcome that they're going for, where it's supposed to feel cool, it's supposed to feel like you're doing something insane, like you're a character in a show, doing some weird combo, has kind of been maintained throughout all of Yu-Gi-Oh's history.
No, I can definitely see it. I see the way people even something we play, we go over the top sometimes, just with our effects. I draw this, now I activate this card, which allows me to do this, and this. I was like,
yeah. You feel your voice raising as you're speaking on accident.
Yeah, you're like, and then you're like, you're doing stuff, and you're like, you kind of like become you become the character in a way, and you're like, I see that it was like, and that's what kind of makes the game fun in a way, or at least when you're close with people, because if you do it at locals and they're completely like strangers or like people that are like, are just like kind of like always straight faced or serious. Yeah, they'll think you're weird, or even though it might be weird, but like they'll think you're really weird, or they're just like, oh, I don't like your energy, wherever it is, and then like, I don't know, it's just kind of like, it's not really a fine line for that. Just don't. Like when you go to locals, you kind of feel like you shouldn't be yourself, right? Like you always like pretending to be something else.
I think it's going to happen when you get nerds in a room. That some of them are going to take things a little bit weird, and some of them are going to be a little too reserved.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I go to locals and I see the kid who's speaking Japanese the whole time, and he's really into it, I'm like, I'm not about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I am cringing to death.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Trying to play against
100%.
you. And then the people who are just completely stone-faced and who are, like, looking at me like I'm dumb just because I have a smile on my face. Obviously, I dislike that mentality, too.
Yeah.
I think there's a balance to be struck there. But I think it's harder to find with nerds that sort of social skill to find the right sort of friendliness while also not being absolutely cringe. Yep. Anyway, thanks for coming on.
Well,
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
After all this time, finally got to have you on. It was a bit of a battle.
It was about time. Well, I don't say it was about time because I guess it was. What's that saying? I don't know. It's like I don't know. I had the saying at the beginning of the podcast. Now I completely blanked on it. I don't know what it is. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, guess we'll never know.
All in due time. That's what it was.
Ah, okay. Yes,
all in due time. That's what it was. Something like that.
It does feel like it was the right time.
Yeah.
To finally be able to get this done. Well, thanks for coming on. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Bye.